You're lying on your couch right now, phone in hand, door locked. Maybe there's leftover pizza on the counter. Outside, a police car rolls past your street, and you don't even flinch. You feel safe. Totally, completely safe. You don't think about safety because you don't have to. Now, rewind 12,000 years, you're sleeping on dirt in a group of maybe 40 people, and tonight, somewhere in the dark beyond your fire's glow, another group of humans is watching you. They're not coming to trade. They're not coming to talk. They're coming for your food, your water, your women, and your land. And you have no army, no walls, no weapons beyond sharpened rocks. So the question is dead simple. When did humans first organize to fight as one? And why did they even need to? Let's start with something that might surprise you. For most of human existence, we didn't have armies. We didn't even have war. Not really. Your ancestors lived in small bands of hunter-gatherers. 20 to 50 people max. They moved constantly, followed the animals, followed the seasons. And here's the thing nobody tells you. When you own nothing, there's nothing to fight over. A 2012 study by Douglas Fry and Patrick Soderberg examined 148 episodes of lethal aggression among 21 mobile forager societies. Most killings were personal. Jealousy, revenge, a fight over a mate. But organized group violence? Almost non-existent. War wasn't human nature. War was a human invention. And like every invention, it needed a reason to exist. That reason showed up around 12,000 years ago. It showed up as grain. Here's what changed everything. In the Fertile Crescent, modern-day Iraq, Syria, Turkey, your ancestors did something radical. They stopped moving. They planted wheat. They planted barley. They domesticated goats and sheep. Archaeologists call it the Neolithic Revolution, and it sounds beautiful, right? Settle down, grow food, build a home, but settling down created a problem nobody saw coming. For the first time in human history, you had surplus, extra food, stored grain, and stored grain doesn't run away like a deer. It just sits there, waiting, visible, vulnerable. Suddenly you had something worth stealing, and suddenly you had something worth killing for. Think about that for a second. The very thing that made life better made life more dangerous. The village of Jericho in the Jordan Valley tells this story perfectly. By 8000 BCE, Jericho had a stone wall, a massive one, 3 meters high, 2 meters thick, and behind that wall stood a tower nearly 9 meters tall. This wasn't decoration. This wasn't art. This was fear turned into stone. Jericho built walls because someone, somewhere, was coming to take what they had. The walls came first, the armies came next. A wall is passive, a wall waits. But what happens when the threat doesn't come from one direction? What happens when raiders hit your fields at dawn? When they burn your grain stores at night? When they come back again and again because they know exactly where you live? You can't just hide behind stone forever. You need people who go out, people who fight before the enemy arrives, people who patrol, who scout, who organize. You need an army. But the first armies looked nothing like what you're picturing. No uniforms, no ranks, no generals on horseback. The earliest evidence of organized military violence comes from a site called Jebel Sahaba. It sits in northern Sudan, along the Nile. He found a cemetery, 59 bodies. Nearly half of them showed signs of violent death. Arrowheads embedded in bone, slash marks on ribs. Men, women, children. This wasn't a battle between soldiers. This was a massacre. And it dated to roughly 13,000 years ago, before agriculture even began, so war might be even older than grain. That changes the story. As the last ice age ended, the climate shifted hard. Water sources dried up. Fertile zones shrank. And groups that had peacefully ignored each other for millennia were suddenly competing for the same shrinking land. You didn't fight because you were greedy. You fought because the river moved, the game vanished, the world got smaller. And your 40 people and their 40 people both needed the same water hole. That's when everything changed about how humans lived together. The first armies weren't really about fighting. They were about organization. An organization required something totally new. It required hierarchy. In a hunter-gatherer band, leadership was loose. The best hunter might lead a hunt. The oldest woman might settle a dispute. But nobody gave permanent orders. Nobody had rank. Building an army meant someone had to be in charge. Permanently. Someone had to decide who fights, who guards, who eats first, who gets the best weapons. Göbekli Tepe in southeastern Turkey gives us a glimpse. Built around 9600 BCE, it's the oldest known monumental structure on Earth. Massive carved pillars, animal reliefs, organized labor on a scale that required hundreds of people working together. But cooperation for temples and cooperation for war require the same muscle. They require someone pointing and everyone else following. The first general wasn't a military genius, he was just the first person everyone agreed to obey. And obedience created power. Power created kings. Kings created empires. Around 2700 BCE in ancient Sumer, southern Iraq today, a king named Eannatum of Lagash did something no one had done before. He recorded his army. On the stele of the vultures, a carved limestone slab discovered in 1881, rows of soldiers, identical helmets, identical shields, marching in tight formation, spears raised at the same angle. This wasn't a mob. This wasn't a raiding party. This was a machine, a human machine, trained to move as one body, trained to kill as one weapon. The Sumerian Phalanx might be the first professional military formation in recorded history. And here's what's wild about it. Those soldiers weren't fighting for survival anymore. They were fighting for a king's ambition, for a city's glory, for taxes and trade routes. The purpose of the army had already evolved past its origin. It started as protection. It became projection. First, the climate squeezed them together. Then, agriculture gave them something to lose. Then, settlement made them visible targets. And then, maybe the cruelest twist, the very hierarchy they built for defense became a machine for offense. The army meant to guard the grain became the army sent to seize someone else's. A 2013 study published in the journal Science by Samuel Bowles estimated that between 15,000 and 5,000 years ago, intergroup warfare killed roughly 14% of all humans in some regions. 14%. That's not a footnote. That's a defining feature of early civilization. The army wasn't an accessory, it was the engine. Every civilization you've ever admired was built on this foundation. Rome, Egypt, China, Greece. Writing was likely invented in Sumer partly to track military supplies. Mathematics advanced because someone needed to calculate how much grain feeds an army for a month. Roads were built to move soldiers. Census records existed to count fighting age men. The poet and the general drank from the same well. Your alphabet, your roads, your legal system, all of them trace back to the moment humans decided to organize violence. That's uncomfortable. It should be. Your ancestors weren't monsters. They were problem solvers. The world handed them drought, and they dug irrigation. The world handed them predators, and they built walls. The world handed them other humans who wanted to take everything, and they stood together. They formed lines. They trained. They sacrificed individual freedom for collective survival. The first army wasn't born from cruelty, it was born from love. Love for children sleeping near the fire. Love for stored food that would get the village through winter. Love for 40 fragile people who had no one else. Violence organized by love. That's the paradox at the root of civilization. The climate came at your ancestors with scarcity. Rival groups came with raids. Settlement came with vulnerability. And hierarchy came with the temptation to conquer. They answered scarcity with cooperation. They answered raids with formation. They answered vulnerability with walls and weapons. And the conquest temptation? Some resisted, many didn't. That's the honest truth. Now you're on your couch again, phone in hand, door locked, pizza on the counter. That police car outside? It's the latest echo of a 10,000-year-old idea. Someone should patrol. Someone should stand between you and the darkness. You barely notice it. You don't think about it. But 12,000 years of organized protection got you this quiet evening. Thousands of generations standing in lines, holding sharpened sticks, sleeping in shifts so their families didn't have to. You're safe tonight because someone, long ago, agreed to stand up first.